Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 221.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because you're going to learn something that I know you are probably not thinking about. You're like, what is Jay talking about today? Well, oftentimes when you're going out there to begin a business, you're thinking about how can I grow it? How can I make more profit, more revenue, hire more people, get things done? How do I buy that next piece of property and make more cash flow happen? And I totally get that. But oftentimes we forget something critical and important. What am I going to do when I'm done? More importantly, when do I pay myself? How do I get out of the business? What's that exit strategy going to be? And am I even prepared for anything like that? I think today's guest is going to be able to help you understand when and how, and most importantly, be aware of your own needs for yourself so that you can go out there and continue to serve the customers that you're looking to serve. We have with us today Andrea Travillian, and one of the cool things about her is that she's very gracious because I know at least once this episode I am going to mispronounce her name. So I always appreciate grace with anyone that I'm working with, and if you are that person who you know you're not perfect, but you like people who can still help you even though they know you're not perfect, that's exactly who we're talking to today. She's been on a number of podcasts, Stacking Benjamins, Reaching the Summit, The Chris Cerrone Show. She has been out there helping a number of entrepreneurs like you, like myself, go out there and make things happen positively. And the cool thing is, she's nice too. Help me welcome Andrea. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Well, so far, so good. How am I doing on the pronunciation?
You got the last name down pat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just call me Travillian. It's easier then.
That is, what's pretty funny? It would be easier for me to call you by the more difficultly spelled name. Travillian would be easier than Andrea, right?
Andrea's right.
Got
it.
See, I knew it was going to happen. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Now, most of those listening know the first question I'm going to ask you. I tend to look at, today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So you've got, Wonder Woman, you got Black Widow, you got a ton of people, especially, we dress up for them as Halloween costumes, etc. But at one time, even those superheroes, even those people on the cover of those comic books were, just normal before they got bit by a spider or something happened to them. And they had an origin story. They started somewhere. They chose to use their special gifts to serve others, and then they took on that mantle, and that's what they do today. So what we want to know is, before, all of the attention, before of helping individuals with their finances, before of even digging in, being willing to do the dirty work to help an entrepreneur with their own mess and make sure that they have what they should have when it's time to have it. What I want to know is, who is Andrea Travillian?
I think I have like 10 backstories.
Okay. Then
I don't have just one.
Then this is going to be interesting. Let me grab my pen.
It really is. People, as I start down through this, people are going, what? How did you go from that to that? But we're going to go way back.
Okay.
And in the 6th grade,
okay,
I bought my first stock.
Wow. All right.
And I was hooked. Hook, line, sinker, bit the bullet. Ended up majoring in finance, got my MBA. From that point, I worked corporate finance, I worked taxes, I worked in banking, I worked on the operations side of investments. I kind of covered every finance area out there. And then had my son, who, for the record, was Captain America for Halloween.
Of course.
His favorite superhero. So, he was born, and I said, I'm done with corporate America. I'm done with the micromanaging finance managers. And I quit and started my first business, which was wedding planning.
Okay.
I told you we're going to go down the really windy path.
Yeah, I promise you, I did not expect wedding planning, but okay, this is good. I'm listening.
As my husband has said, I am not your typical finance accounting person.
That means you have a personality. This is good.
Bingo. And so I started this wedding planning business, and I loved it. I was passionate about it. Just loved everything about it. But the hours were killing me. Every weekend. And what people don't realize is it's during the week too. So I was managing events on the weekend. So 14, 15-hour days. And then during the week, I'm taking brides to meet photographers and picking out cake and doing the decor and, finishing up the week before. And on top of weddings, I was doing corporate events, high school reunions. So it was really all the time. Wow. And so I couldn't do it. So luckily, my husband and I had always managed our finances in a way that there was a surplus. And so I just stopped. I'm done, and planned my last wedding and started doing bookkeeping for all of my vendors. Huh. And so I would work with my florist and my chiropractor and, just kind of a few others to manage their finances and do their bookkeeping. And over time, it got to the point where, yes, I'd go in and do their books and, I'd help them tax plan and do all this other stuff. But most of the questions came around, the actual strategy behind this. Okay, I'm going to grow this. Where should I get this funds from? Where do I move them over here? How do I end up paying myself? And so, call it 7 years later, because I'm a really slow learner about what I'm supposed to be doing. I ended up where I am today. And today I do coach businesses on like part-time CFO type stuff. And then I also work with entrepreneurs to help them figure out, how do I take these profits that I'm getting from my business and get them into another asset class? Because most entrepreneurs are so focused on growing their business, they forget that the reason that they're doing it is so that eventually they have financial freedom. Well, when you have all of your savings in one asset, it's very, very dangerous. And most businesses are not sellable. People don't realize that. They think, I'm going to make my windfall over here, or they don't even think about it. They're like, oh, what? I can sell this at the end? And so I really work with those entrepreneurs so they can make a plan and then learn how to manage their own money, because most entrepreneurs like to be very hands-on with their money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally understood. Now, I'm going to back up just a moment and I'm going to give you a quick pop quiz. Your son was Captain America. Captain America's name was, before he was Captain America?
Oh, I want to say Chris.
Okay, that's the actor who played Captain America. Right. There we go. There you go.
And the funny thing is I've seen all of the Captain Americas. I can tell you when the next one's going to be released and everything because he's so into it. But
no. You got the actor Chris Evans. That is true. I was looking for Steve Rogers. I was just curious.
I see. Once you said it, I knew it.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Now, there was something interesting though in this transition that I want to bring up, because you clearly weren't afraid to move around in the corporate world, but something clicked, something changed. You changed in such a fundamental way that you decided to start the wedding planning business. Now, we'll throw aside the fact that wedding planning seems about as out of left field from finance as humanly possible. I'm curious to know where the courage to leave what was familiar behind came from.
I honestly think it was more a matter of, people always say it finally got bad enough that the change wasn't bad.
I see.
And I could tell you horror stories about half of my managers, because when you're in the finance world, everything is about detail and it's full of micromanagers. And, you're going to love this one. But one of my bosses at a company that I worked for, her name was Diva.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Wow.
And let's just say that she kind of fit the bill. Wow. But the hard part is she actually didn't know what she was doing.
Oh, wow.
And so, we would be in the middle of the budgeting process. So I actually did like the budget for a major national company, and we did, we were working nonstop. And so there was a Sunday when, my partner in crime and I, he had kids stuff going on, hadn't been to half of it that season. I was hosting a baby shower, not going to, hosting. And she was like, well, are you guys going to come in? And we're like, no, we're taking Sunday off. And she goes, okay, fine, I'll come in and do it. And we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, she is going to ruin it. And so he and I got up at like 6 a.m. to go in so that she couldn't touch it. And it was enough bosses like Diva that I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Okay. Well, this is good then. But and many people can relate to the frustration that you're talking about. In a lot of businesses, a lot of our desire to go out there and build cash flow starts with frustration. I know one of the things I was frustrated about when it comes to corporate is I could never understand that even though I could produce better results, similar to what you're saying, I could produce better results in less time. My lunch break still had to be exactly an hour. I always had to still arrive exactly on time. And I still had to ask for permission to take my own children to the doctor. That always irritated me. Many people can relate to the frustration, but still, when you face I'm going to go do something completely different, there's this, especially in this case, finance and wedding planning. I could see if you said, I'm going to go from finance to what you later did, bookkeeping. Okay. That kind of was like, all right, not so big of a deal, but you have to face finding a customer. You have to face what is, planning were you already planning weddings as a hobby?
I was going to say, so even more backstory is I paid for college and everything through the hospitality industry. I managed restaurants. I worked catering. I knew how to run an event.
Okay.
On top of that, I'm a natural born planner. So you name it, I've planned it all the way from, junior high on up, high school, homecoming, prom.
I see.
I ran all the food for a festival in my college called Riverfest. So it was like when I love telling the story because people are like, what?
Sure.
But if you do go into like all my, pre-career stuff, it's all hospitality.
Got it. Well, here's a little note. You and I are completely opposite. I don't like to plan anything. Just ask my team. So what I find interesting though, and this is true for every one of you listening, I hope you hear this. There are a lot of clues to what you should be doing are existing inside your hobbies and the things that you have already done. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of these skill sets have transferred all the way through to what you're doing today. So I get it now. You did have a little bit of understanding of the hospitality thing because that is a big jump.
It is a very big jump. And I'll tell you the other really big factor, the reason I wasn't worried is because of the way my husband and I managed our money.
And that's the other thing. I'm glad you said that because that's exactly where I was going next because you said something that I'm sure everybody heard. You said you managed finances. You managed to do that so that there was always a surplus. Now, first of all, I think so that I, don't get all the emails, I have to ask you, please tell us how to do that so that, everybody, I asked her. So now she's going to respond. So stop, put the keyboard down. She's going to answer. Now pick up the pen and take some notes.
All right. So it comes from really, truly, we both believed that from the very get-go. So while we started out in debt because we both paid for our colleges, it was always with the intention we're going to get this paid off as soon as we can. My grandpa, I come from a farm family, they owned the same farm for 140 years through the Great Depression, the farm crisis of the 80s, all of that. And that came with a very deep understanding of what sacrifices you make so that you can make it your entire lifetime. So that would be the first, is that we were just both kind of wired that way. And then we made a very conscious effort to not increase lifestyle more than we needed. So when we first got out of college, we found a place that was affordable. We wanted to be downtown, but we didn't want to pay downtown prices. And so we lived 1.5 miles outside of downtown. When we drive through that neighborhood now, we're like, what the heck were we thinking? Evidently, we really didn't have kids because this place is scary. But it was things like that. We started saving in our 401ks from day one because we knew once we had kids that was going to be harder. As we've aged, we have always kept that in mind. So, we live on salary, not bonuses. We do tons and tons of planning. So instead of being like, yay, we just got bonus, let's go, we pull up a spreadsheet that we already have of the next 15 things we want to buy. And we go, okay, this is how much we have. These are the things we want to do. Which one's our priority right now? So you have to make a conscious effort, a conscious decision. I am going to live on less than I make. I am going to accept my lifestyle as it is, and I am going to plan my money to ensure that happens.
Okay. All right. So you've been working with entrepreneurs for a while. You understand the mindset, the type, the psychology. Mm-hmm. There's like 0.3% of them who are that way.
Correct.
So
correct. It's and most entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm going to make it big on this next product I'm launching, this next company. This is it. This is going to be my home run.
Yeah. So expound on this concept a little bit more, because I know that it's weird how the very things that make us great at getting out there, taking action, making stuff happen, causing a mess, and then hiring people to help clean it up, often sabotage us in other areas. And this is definitely one. So I would love for you to share your wisdom on how the typical entrepreneur can begin to do these very things you're talking about.
Well, I think the first thing, and I've experienced this over and over again with clients, they honestly kind of have to have an aha moment. If you're an entrepreneur and you truly, honestly believe that the next one's going to be the greatest hit, there is not a thing that I can say in the world to convince you otherwise. If you're starting to think, okay, maybe I need to kind of prepare for the future, or maybe I need to do this, then I have a ton of stats that I can start, throwing at you and discussing. But I can't even count how many times I've had a client call me in a panic. Oh my gosh, I just realized I want to retire in 5 years. I have no succession planning. I don't know if I have enough money, or vice versa, the opposite. I've had plenty of people call going, we're struggling to meet payroll. We're in over our heads. Our parents have us loan money. What do we do? So it is very rare, the number of clients that come to me where they're like, hey, we've got 20 years. What should we do. I've had maybe one or two of those. And then the other version I get is I really truly want to be done in 10 years. So let's plan. So I think you have to understand, you have to know yourself well enough to be like, okay, yeah, I don't think it's important right now.
Yeah.
You got to own it.
Got it. This is,
I wish I had the magic bullet. In my wildest dreams, I could get on your show and say, start saving tomorrow. And everybody would go, yeah, that's it. Let's go. But it just doesn't work. Like people even in their minds are like, oh yeah, I know that's important, but it's so far down the road that they don't think they need to worry about it now. There's actually some fascinating research on time perspective and the way that you look at time. And there's like 5 or 6 different types of time perspectives. And an overwhelming majority of people have a positive present perspective, meaning they're only worried about today, absolutely nothing else. And that very, very few people have the future perspective, which is kind of what you need to be able to plan the way I do. I have a future perspective. I have a long-term planning skill, which is why I could do the wedding planning. And I have a future perspective. So sometimes you can trick yourself. So my husband actually is very present moment, like crazy present moment.
I'm sensing a number of late night conversations right now.
Well, I've got some awesome stories. So this is how last minute he is. Like if I try to plan a vacation, I'm like, when do you want to fly out? He's like, whatever, you decide. And then the night before, he's like, well, why are we flying out at that time? Like, you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, now you understand. Hey, wow, I should talk to him because he and I are the same.
Here's the thing. So one day after I read this time perspective book and I was like, I think it's unusual. We're both, future, blah, blah, and we always plan out these. And he's like, I'm not future. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? He goes, think about when we have our conversations. So basically, I had subconsciously learned the trick of talking about our financial future and our plans while I had him in the car on a road trip.
Got it.
So if you need to trick yourself into different ways to get yourself into the mindset, and then what I tell when I talk to somebody and it's blatantly obvious that they're not listening to anything, I'm like, will you do me a favor and just set aside $50 in a month in an index fund? Just do that, please.
On your way to the store, put this here. Got it. Totally understood. Now, I guess the question is you said for 7 years, it took you 7 years to wake up. What was that I'll call it that superhero moment? There's that moment where you go, oh, here's this thing I have that's special that I'm supposed to be sharing with people. And I'll go do that. What was the path and how did you find that out? The road to success, that destination that you are reaching for, looking after, or hopefully chasing in some way, shape, or form. It's not a straight line. And you may have figured that out already. Maybe not. Maybe you feel like it's going to be a straight line this time. Here's the point. Most of us, we have twists, we have turns, we have ups, we have downs. We have to peel back the onion, as they say, in order to understand where we should be playing. And you know what? That's okay. If you had an up, you've had a down, you're still in the game, which is good. And in fact, if you want to know about some of my ups and downs and how to stay in the game for yourself, why don't you grab a copy of Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. I'll send you an electronic PDF version right now. Just go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book. Or if you just happen to be on a mobile device and it's going to be more convenient for you to text, whip that thing out and text the word book to 72,000. Again, that's book, BOOK, to 72000. Enough of that. Let's get back.
I got hit by the traditional entrepreneur ADD, and when something wasn't taking off, I'd be like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be over here instead. So right. I made many turns before I needed. I'm really good at the finance. The marketing's my downfall. So, right. And finally, I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm either done or I'm really figuring this out. And so I've worked with a branding coach and at the same time worked with like a personal coach. I'm not really sure what you would deem her as, but we did a lot of really deep work, and I put that together with all the zillion personality tests I had taken over the years, and and finally went, wait a second. Almost all of my clients are business owners. Like, I was just being a regular finance coach, no specification. And business owners just kept coming to me. And I think that's because I've been self-employed for 13 years now. So I know how to plan. I know you can't necessarily rely on a regular paycheck. And I kind of, through this soul search, went, wait a second. Business owners like me. I like them. A lot of them stick around for business coaching. So they'll come to me for the finance, and they'll be like, and they'll stick around because of business coaching. And that I just had that, soul search. Am I done? Am I not? And it all clicked.
And I think that path, what you're describing, is very similar for most of us. It is somehow an epiphany experience. You just wake up one day going, oh, this.
and I think you almost have to take the winding road to get there. Business isn't a straight up hill, direction. For the media would like you to think it is, but it's not. I have talked to very few entrepreneurs who, it was a straight up.
Andrea, if you keep speaking like this, they're going to stop listening. You're bursting their bubble.
Sorry.
I mean, but you're absolutely true. I mean, it has taken a long time to figure out, all the things that you're, first of all, good at and what you're not, and then learning how to package that in such a way to offer it as something of value to the world. So I guess the question that I'm thinking of right now, because you started to mention how there was a commonality, even though you weren't trying to make some sort of commonality, there was commonality around those that you were already working with. So I'm curious to know, what would you say who is that perfect person that you've been able to help now at this moment? Like, what things are they typically experiencing in their business that you go, oh yeah, this is the person that should be looking for the types of things that I provide?
Well, the ones that I actually do business coaching with, they're past the startup stage. They're starting to add people and processes, and it's not going well.
You want to define it's not going well?
Well, a lot of times as we get busy, we just start adding staff. We haven't actually put proper things in place to manage that staff. And we, as entrepreneurs, we tend to think that the person we're going to hire is going to be as motivated and as smart as we are. And so when it doesn't quite work out like that, you either start going through a ton of people, or you're dragging along the wrong people because you just need the help. But you're starting to get burnt out and exhausted, and they're taking up more time. And then but the alternative of getting rid of them is your hours go up anyway. So, it's really about making sure the type of person you're going to get, do a job description, and then have processes. You can't expect somebody to just come in and be like, go do this.
Whoa. I can expect it. I'll just have a wrong expectation.
Correct. You can expect that, but it won't work.
I'm just, speaking from personal experience here. And you realize you said I have to write a job description. That means I got to plan that. Come on.
You don't know how many people fight me on that, but then once it's done, I'm talking to you.
yeah, I have an idea. I do have an idea. Yes.
But I'll tell you, every time somebody actually sits down and does it, and then searches for the person based on it, the experience is so much better. And, I know it's so easy to be like, I have 5 people in my company. I don't need that. No, you really do need that, because you can't expect somebody to come in and know what they're supposed to be doing. And if you're so busy you can't tell them what they're supposed to be doing, then you're throwing money down the drain. Just take it to the toilet, throw it in, and hit the flush button.
Yeah. Right now, I wish I didn't feel the pain of what you are saying. Hopefully everyone is listening and working to avoid the pain. Totally understood. Agreed. So here's the question: is this what this is starting to sound like to me? I mean, everybody knows we're supposed to exercise for 30 minutes and eat, eat the 4 square meals or 3 or breakfast and all this other stuff, all these things that we're supposed to do. This sounds like another one of those. This is one of those things that are good for you, but taste bad. So I'm not going to do it.
And I absolutely. And I think that's honestly why most businesses aren't sellable. It comes down to the business owner won't take the time to put in the proper processes. And if you can't be replaced, then you truly don't have a business, you have a job.
Right.
And that's where you start to get in trouble on the personal side, because you burn out, you've depleted yourself, but you haven't saved, and now you don't have an asset you can sell. So yes, you can ignore this. You don't have to do this at all, but you need to have some sort of plan for, down the road when you actually need money.
So let's talk about that. How does one plan for that down the road? I mean, you mentioned how to, taking money, changing asset classes, because you're right. Most entrepreneurs, we might have our business as one of the asset classes, but all of our eggs are in that basket. We don't have any paper assets. We might not have any real assets, etc. So I'm curious to hear, how does one, a business owner in today's economy, today's world, cash flows have to, you want to talk about unpredictable. How do we go, all right, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to do, so that 10 years from now, even if I don't systematize my business, I still have all these other things.
Well, and that's where my second client comes in, as clients who have realized that, okay, I'm making good money. Chances are, this isn't going to continue, or I don't want it to continue. The reason is always varied. And so what you do then is you determine, how much do I need on a monthly basis to continue living the way I want to live? And then it's a matter of evaluating your personality and your strengths to figure out what is the right approach to go. So, we might look at, there's 3 ways to build wealth. There's the business, there's real estate, and then there's paper assets, which is like stocks and bonds and that type of thing. So you have to go, okay, I've got the business, but I really do need to diversify. And then we go through this process of, okay, this is how much you need to have in rental properties to cover that, or this is how much you need to have in dividend stocks. And you kind of figure out where's your strength, where's your strong suit. And I'll tell you, for most of my clients who are successful in their businesses, they're so busy running their businesses that they just choose paper assets because they can just pick that index fund and just start building it up. The nice part about owning your own business is you can very easily take some of the profits and set up a retirement plan for you, and depending on your employees, will determine which one you go in, but you can make that a deduction. So you're reducing your overall tax cost, and you can do it on the personal side too, and start creating this nest egg of paper assets. And once in a while, I get a person who owns a business who actually also loves real estate, which hello. And then that's a whole nother story because, that's just kind of a different ballgame.
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. You attack that from one perspective as if they own the business. There's going to be a number of those listening, myself included, and others who are the thing we have more of before we have a business is a real estate portfolio. But that becomes the, if you're looking at this business paper as well as real estate assets, that becomes the one leg that we're standing on is all real estate versus all business. Would the advice be similar to go then maybe, because I know for myself, one of the things I've started doing is looking for privately held companies and diversifying that way. We've been building the whole CashFlowDiary platform that's completely separate. But I'm curious to know what you would say.
Well, and I think first thing with real estate, you need to clarify, am I in real estate as a business or is this an asset class? So I'll use an example. One of my clients had a really successful direct mail business that they actually used all three tools, but the real estate portfolio literally was passive income and his wife managed it. So that's one thing.
Got it.
If you actually own and are working a real estate business, so that is your business, then it is wise to choose one of the others. Now, they always say you go with your skill set, but this is where I go back to an index fund. You can easily put $200-$300 in an index fund every month, and you've just diversified yourself. And kind of like what you're talking about, private companies and stuff, there's an entire set of alternative investments that, that could be a whole nother show because a lot of business owners love to get into those. So you can do everything from livestock to angel investing to farms, timberland, websites. There's tons and tons of ways to diversify. So you kind of have to look at your business as a job. And what happens if that job goes away?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what that's exactly what you're supposed to be helping us with is to be ready for that job to go away, either voluntarily or involuntarily one day. And for those of you who were curious about, possibly purchasing websites, there was an episode earlier with Jock Pirtle. You can just type his name in on the site. You'll be able to see that particular episode and listen to it because that's exactly what he does is sells websites. Now, Andrea, it seems like conversations with you could probably go for, I don't know, days. Simply because there's so much tied to, it's like you pull on one string, which unravels the next one, which unravels the next one. And unfortunately, we just don't have that kind of time. But there are one or two individuals, maybe a whole lot more, that are listening to right now going, she's right. I need some assistance, somebody else's eyes on all these things that are happening. And I just need to make sure that I know what she's got going on. Can you share with us what's going to be the best way for us to follow you, to find you, track you down, and get the information that we need so that we don't injure ourselves later?
Well, to be the best thing about my name, even though we have issues pronouncing it, is I'm the only one.
Yeah, well, you got that right.
So if you type in my name, I instantly come up. Or if you don't want to attempt to spell Travillian, you can go to takeasmartstep.com. And that is my finance and investing for business owners site. And I am there, and you can email me, find me on social media from there.
Got it. Excellent.
Find everything there.
I know, right? It's like you can't hide. I found you. So, and this is good. So let's pretend for a moment that there's another type of individual who's been listening this entire time. They know they want to be this superhero entrepreneur. They think they're ready. However, they have that voice going on in the back of their head. And I know you're familiar with that voice because you've heard it before, but you've dealt with it as well. You've conquered and overcome more than once. It's that voice that often says, is it really going to work? Are you sure you want to do that? Like, is anybody actually going to pay you for that? I mean, all of those things that tend to happen when we say, that's it, I'm ready to move forward. And unfortunately, occasionally we let that hold us back. Mm-hmm. What I would love to know is if someone is hearing that voice right now and you were sitting in front of them, or they were on the phone with you, or you were about to draft the best social media post of all time that would absolutely obliterate it and give them what they needed to hear, what would you say?
Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge that fear is your brain trying to protect you. So when you look at it from that direction, you can be a lot more gentle with yourself. And so really say, okay, I acknowledge this fear. What specifically am I afraid of? And kind of work through that. So whatever your brain says it's specifically afraid of, if you need to create a plan for that, or just be like, hey, we got this. Really acknowledging that fear is just there to protect you will help you create plans to kind of remove that fear and let your brain go, oh, that's all we're doing? Okay, you can pass. And go from there. I really think that's one of the biggest things you can do is most people just forget, I can't do that. I can't do that. And never say, okay, why? Why can't I do that? What am I scared of? And once you know what you're scared of and make a plan, it's a lot easier to make the shift.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Well, what I do want to say is I want to thank you for having a personality in the financial world. You make it easier to talk about it because it can be challenging and intimidating enough when you're looking at these spreadsheets. But most importantly, I thank you for being you and taking the time to invest with us here at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? It means you probably should take a smart step because you've already taken many missteps, right? So now is the time. There is no time but now o'clock, and you knew that already. So instead of listening to that voice in the head saying, oh, when I get home, no, do it now. It's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.